We talk a lot about artificial intelligence, but we almost never talk about artificial responsibility. Today's guest has led billion-dollar revenue engines, managed massive teams, operated inside one of the world's largest corporations for over 2 decades, and now he is working on AI that doesn't just optimize outcomes, but interacts with human emotion. This conversation is not about tools, it's not about trends, it's about judgment, leadership, and what happens when intelligence is no longer human but accountability still is. Welcome to 101 Talks with Sachin Menon. Dino Perone, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Sachin. It's great to be here.
Dino, before we talk about AI, scale, or the future, I want to go way back. You have led billion-dollar revenue engines and massive teams. Looking back, what part of your journey forced you to evolve as a leader, not just grow as an executive?
Sure. It's a great question, Sachin. My roots and leadership style go back to my military days, my formative years in my early 20s. And as you know, the military, most militaries across the world insist on teaching and expecting great leadership because that's how battles are won or avoided by having great leadership in their arsenal. So I took those lessons in my early days and carried them forward throughout my career. Principles of leadership transcend any organization, any technology, or governance model for that matter. And so my early days in military leadership have contributed to my success.
The military has given you discipline and your leadership capability.
Yeah, not only discipline, but there are other behaviors and skills that the military is famous for, like adaptability, change, and most importantly, connecting with people at a very, very deep level so that they form as one, unite as one, and fight as one. And if you can do that, any organization is unstoppable.
It's particularly helpful in the team building. I want to stay onto that thread because growth and evolution aren't always the same thing. Was there a moment in your career once you started working where success on paper didn't feel successful personally? And did that moment bring a change in you?
Yeah, there were a couple moments. Um, I'll point to maybe one or two, but we're all going to have situations where we feel we're not supported, or we don't have the right leadership, or the leadership that we're under doesn't resonate with us. And so that creates a moment where we question ourselves and what we're doing, how we can contribute to the mission, to the organization, and its goals. And so it's those moments where open communication, different perspectives, and the courage to reach out for help really matter. And by doing that, you grow. You grow, you learn, and you become a better person and a better leader. And I've had to do that a few times in my career. But in all cases, in all moments, I do my best. I do my best given the situation and circumstances. And that's all any leader can really expect is for you to show up and do your best.
And you've also seen leadership from inside one of the largest organization I can say on the planet. You spent over 2 decades at AT&T. What did a long career inside a massive organization teach you about scale, maybe politics and patience that startups simply never could?
Yeah. Well, yeah, patience, for sure. Even in the most stressful situations where you think you have to make a decision, you really should evaluate whether that decision needs to be made now. So patience should be at the forefront of any crisis situation. But on scale, um, there's a couple of elements there, right? When you have a large organization or large volumes or big expectations, right? Any minor change to the plan, the process, the tooling, and in sales, the compensation model, as an example at a granular level, could have a huge impact on the results or the outcome. So it's very, very important that you model things, you model KPIs, you model assumptions, and you model, and the model should give you results. But I do caveat that with there's only so much modeling you can do. And from a strategic perspective, right, it's important to have a plan that's well thought out, but not overthought. And so there is no perfect plan. And the reason why you shouldn't have a perfect plan is the execution is infinitely more important than the strategy. So even with an 80% plus strategic plan, it comes down to the execution of the organization. And that's where great leadership comes into play. That's where great communications, courage, and adaptability and flexibility come into play, right? Because where execution meets customers across the globe is where you're going to make best or the most impact. And so that's the secret of how to scale an organization. Don't overthink strategy, but have a thoughtful plan and spend more time in executing that plan.
Simple plan because there is no perfect plan. That experience brings us to now because what you're doing today is very different from where you started. Today, you are Chief Revenue Officer at Tranquilla AI, a company working at the intersection of AI, empathy, and emotional wellness. What problem are you personally obsessed with solving right now?
Absolutely. I joined Tranquilla AI because I so believe in the mission. It's really a nexus and overlap between the latest in technology, right, and human compassion. After 25 plus years in technology, the application of technology, and seeing what it can accomplish globally, this mission is about addressing human needs and at scale. So this isn't about deploying an application for a specific organization and tailoring it. This is about deploying a mindset where humans now have the capability to interact with technology as if they're interacting with other humans. And so our extreme application or use case is addressing those people that are in the most crisis situations. So think about veterans across the globe that need help because they have a mental illness or an issue and they can't get that assistance when they need it. Platform comes into play by helping and addressing those veterans and military personnel face to face as if they are interacting with a human. And so the platform's capabilities and differentiators are it understands emotions, it understands tone, voice inflection, spacing between words. And so as the technology evolves, the human experience and the trust and maybe a dependency will only increase. But so where we are now, right, with the technology, the platform is we're complementing organizations to help them address a growing gap in human need, specifically in crisis situations, but the applications go way beyond crisis.
Because this isn't telecom, this isn't infrastructure, this is deeply human.
Deeply human.
This isn't traditional enterprise SaaS. How is building Tranquilla AI fundamentally different from revenue engines you scaled earlier in, in telecom and infrastructure?
Yeah. So in telecom or other technology type of sales, you typically have a portfolio of products that are very specific in what the capabilities are. And the way to deploy them, right, is a couple of ways. One way is to deploy as a single product to meet a single need, or combine several products to meet a more complex type of need. So at Tranquilla AI, we have a very, very open canvas on a capability that can be almost immediately customized for any situation, whether it's crisis, whether it's an employee assistance program that wants to increase engagement for its employees, or whether it's a education system, a college, a university, a high school or charter school that wants to help its students learn at their own pace and how they resonate with the curriculum, the other student body, the teachers, the professors. So it's a highly customizable platform that is based on the organization's curriculum in the case of an education system. And so we're not pulling in data wholly from public sources. We're actually using the organization's data and content and messaging and branding to bring this human experience, this highly customized human experience to life for students or clients or end users.
From your seat, how is AI actually changing revenue and sales leadership, not in theory but in practice?
Yeah, in practice, sales leadership has always been about connecting with people, whether externally or internally. And so I don't think that is necessarily changing because relationships are always important. I think will be important. Perhaps what is changing is the pace that leaders need to understand or learn and understand how those relationships need to be formed, right? And so there's challenges that are posed in today's environment from a technology perspective, AI specifically. There's a lot of fear. There's a lot of uncertainty. There's even doubt. There's a perception of high risk with AI. And so all of those factors play a role in establishing trust and eventually great relationships with clients. And even from a recruiting perspective, sales team, broader team really needs to be comfortable with explaining or addressing uncertainties, fear, etc. And so I think that's the main difference between yesterday's sales leadership and what is needed from a sales leadership perspective today with the advent and adoption of AI.
And coming to AI responsibility, where your expertise lies, right? Everyone is racing to deploy AI, but very few leaders like yourself are pausing to ask, should we? Where do you personally draw the line between innovation and responsibility?
Right, there is no line. We always seek to deploy our technology with guidelines. It's not an add-on feature. It is built into the platform. And so we go through many iterations with high risk end users to ensure that the content, the interaction stays true to what the desired outcome is. So humans will ask many questions of their technology, their AI. We call them companions or avatars. And if there's questions or comments that are way out of bounds from the curriculum, content, the organization's brand or mission, our technology will recognize that and attempt to bring that end user, that client, that customer back into bounds in order to, as an example, help the student learn about algebra versus learning about how to drive a car. That's an out of bounds topic. And so you can magnify those examples to the extreme cases. And we take very, very staunch approach to making sure that there are guardrails in place such that there's no harm, very little risk, and that the desired outcome is achieved.
You're building AI that interacts with people emotionally. What's the biggest risk leaders underestimate when AI starts influencing human behavior and mental well being?
Yeah, the biggest risk is those end users, those clients, perhaps develop an over dependency on the platform and shy away from human and true human interactions. And that is probably an area that's very futuristic, right? We're not even close to that yet. That could happen. And so that's an area I think that this technology may need to address, will need to address, is that dependency.
Coming to that brings us to the value inside the machine, right? If AI systems inevitably reflect the values of people who build them, What values do you think are missing in today's AI ecosystem from your
Yeah.
viewpoint?
Yeah. So just like other technologies, either applications, connectivity, solutions, mobile data, internet, right? Those are great and they serve a purpose, right? But with this technology, you have to really understand what the capabilities and possible outcomes are. And so when you compare to previous technologies, there is a huge opportunity to reinvent and instill values in the technology. Now, how do you do that? Right? Well, we talked about one is being responsible, right? The second way is for the technology to offer feedback, right? In terms of reporting, usage, types of questions, comments, summaries, right? And so we have the capability now to get that feedback, incorporate it to make the platform, to make the technology even better. In the past, feedback was really taken from end users and it was inconsistent, right? We have a much more consistent way, right, to obtain data and use it, right? Use it to make platform, the solution, the technology better. And that's a value that I think was missing, and we have an opportunity to correct and reinvent with AI.
That's well put. And let's zoom out from the responsibility of AI to leadership. When pressure is brutal and stakes are high, what actually matters in a leader, specifically in the AI era?
Yeah. Well, there's a few things that always matter in a leader. The number one is integrity and high character. And from that, you have to have the courage to communicate specific values. And so, under any stressful situation or non-stressful situation, those values still apply. And so, it's incumbent upon the leader to continually incorporate those values into the decision making, the communication, whether the outcome is achieved or not. Those values need to be the foundation of the journey because if they're not, then you have chaos and that's when a lot of things go wrong. And we talked about plan before. Without values, the plan is surely to fail, right? And if it doesn't, it's probably luck. And so I think it's incumbent upon leaders today, right, to have firm values and have the courage to communicate them, especially in an era where we have this awesome technology, this capability, AI, where it's easy for leaders to veer from values in deference to a desired outcome. Give up your values in order to achieve some success. I would question that leader, do you have the right values?
Leaders should have strong integrity. Let's again zoom out in the future.
Mhm.
As AI
Sure.
becomes a default coworker, what human skills will matter more in the workplace?
So I think there's an increased dependency in second guessing, and second guessing is it's almost a natural outcome. I don't know what to do. I don't know what to say. Let me go consult some AI engine and see what it has to say. So I think human confidence may be slightly eroding by creating or the creation of a dependency on different perspectives from AI. And so I would caution anyone, right? Your values, your spirit, your integrity, your character, right, should form the basis of how confident you are, right? And it's great to get a second opinion, but you have to trust yourself that what you're doing is in the spirit of doing something right. You have the right intent, right? And that is something I would guard against, right? Have to keep those skills. You have to keep that confidence that you have and use technology as second opinion, but very sparingly.
For students entering the workforce today, what mindset shift must they make to stay relevant in an AI first world?
Yeah, I don't know if it's a mind shift, but it's a core skill. You have to be open, more open to change, open to creativity, right? You have to learn how to drive creativity and innovation because AI gives us that capability, right? You have to be able to, in a maybe even a very unstructured manner, be able to think in an unstructured way, be able to ideate and be okay with not having the solution after one question asked. This is an iterative process. So most young people expect an answer after one try, immediate results, and you will get a result. It may not be the one that is the best. And so be open to iterating on the problem and how you're going to develop the solution. Be creative and don't be afraid to ask outlandish questions and get different perspectives from the technology.
You have to be persistent on your questions, right?
That's right.
Keep asking. All right, Dino, we come to rapid fire.
Okay.
No overthinking, first instinct answers. Early mornings or late night thinking?
Early morning.
Morning person. Big organizations or small elite teams?
I like small teams.
One leadership habit you had to unlearn?
It's a great probably communicating without confidence.
Hard conversations or hard decisions? Which drain you more?
Hard conversations.
Hard decisions, you can do it easily.
Well, that would not easily, but they're both difficult. But you're asking me to choose the lesser of the two evil or the greater of the two evils
Right. Best use of AI you have seen in the last year?
to help people.
One job AI should never be trusted with.
Models or governance structures that affect many, many people. I'm talking millions of people coming up with a governance structure.
Last one is a funny take. If AI had a conscience, what should it feel guilty about?
That it's making fun of end users, and it
Wrong.
shouldn't be.
And we come to the end of the rapid fire. And I want to end with a non technical, non leadership, very philosophical question. Years from now, when AI is everywhere and nobody remembers the early chaos, what do you hope people say leaders like you protected while everything was changing?
Yeah, I hope people look back, not just on me, but other leaders and say they were doing their best to deploy a great capability for the good of society. And they were trying to do it with the best intent because they had great values. That's what I hope people will say 40, 50, 60, 100 years from now.
What a nice way to close this conversation. Thank you, Dino. This wasn't a conversation about technology. It was a conversation about judgment, about responsibility, about what leaders really demand when intelligence is no longer human. Dino, thank you for your honesty and depth.
Thank you, Sachin. It was my pleasure to be here.
You are watching 101 Talks with Sachin Menon, where we break in big complex ideas into simple, grounded conversation. Thank you. See you in the next episode.